So we are now traveling to Ireland. Dónal, are you there? Are you connected?
Hello, everyone. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Hello, Dónal. So thank you for being here. I will briefly introduce you, then I will leave you the floor. So you're founder and CEO of Vico Advisory. It's the first Irish member of Transeo. You hold a first-class honors degree in economics and finance from University College Dublin and a master's of accounting. And after training as a chartered accountant with KPMG, you transitioned into corporate finance, advising on M&A for Irish SMEs, UK and US private equity firms. I learned that, I didn't know, from 2014 to 2019, you worked with an ultra-high net worth US entrepreneur, acquiring and managing over 30 niche technology and services companies globally, valued at €1 billion. And during this period, you grew your organization, this organization generating over €400 million in revenue and €100 million in EBITDA, serving as both as non-executive and executive director. And now you're CEO of Vico Advisory. You're really like a reference M&A firm in Ireland. And I thought it would be really interesting to ask you, because we're a bit around Europe this afternoon and beyond, to listen to you and to learn more about the Irish M&A market. You're really a nice expert. So thank you for your time and for this presentation. I think you can indeed share your presentation. And Dónal, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you so much for having me today. I just want to make sure that you can all see my screen. You might just give me a quick nod. Yeah, okay, brilliant. Okay, thank you. So yeah, look, you know, I have a lot of slides here. I'm not going to go through everything, but at a high level.
I will tell you when your time is out, and you can maybe put in full screen so we can see properly.
Oh, apologies. Yeah, okay, here we go. Yeah, full screen now. That's right?
Perfect.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm not going to go through all this, but I was asked very kindly by Transeo to provide you with a kind of an idea of what M&A in Ireland is like at the moment, what opportunities there are, and what challenges we face. So yeah, it's a quick blurb on myself. I've been doing this for about 15 years now, both on acquiring businesses and also advising on the acquisition of businesses. And so I'd be very happy to talk with any of you post this as well if you're keen to invest, or if any of your clients are keen to invest in Ireland. What I'm going to run through here today is going to give you a quick macro view of what Ireland is like. I'm going to talk to you about SMEs. It's going to be very similar to, I think, what the other presenters shared with you today. I'm going to talk about the current private equity investing landscape in Ireland. I'm going to talk about how the UK private equity firms are coming in. I'll touch on a few Irish M&A transactions. I'm going to talk about some mainland Europe acquisitions into Ireland, and then the opposite as well, because us Irish indigenous companies have been acquiring mainland European businesses as well. I'm going to touch on, I suppose, how the US tariffs are creating new global trade relationships and strengthening them, and then I'm going to touch on how we help, and then we can have a quick Q&A at the end. So look, I suppose Ireland it's a growing population. Across the island of Ireland, we're above 7 million people now. That includes Northern Ireland, which is in the north of our kind of island, separate country, but very closely linked, obviously, as you can imagine. I suppose the population is growing all the time, and net migration is growing all the time as well, as you can see. Which is obviously a real positive for us. Our education and our workforce is one of the best globally. Our third level education is above 54%, and I suppose which is well above, I suppose, the standard, and it gives a real deep pool of skilled labor, which is very attractive for a lot of companies looking to enter into our market. FDI investment, I suppose it's always increasing. I took a few notes here. But obviously, there's been a significant amount from the US, but also a significant amount from Europe in terms of foreign direct investment. As you can see there, the IDA are basically the Irish government's NGO that brings investment into the country. And so last year we had 230 plus investments coming in, which support over kind of 10, 13,000 jobs. We're trying to move outside of Dublin, which is our capital. There's a big, I suppose, move towards getting out because we do have a lot of issues in Ireland, in Dublin around housing and inflation as well has been growing. So we're trying to move people out of the main city into other cities. Enterprise Ireland is basically the the NGO that supports Irish enterprises, so SMEs. And I suppose they've got a significant amount of investment and that they provide for SMEs. And as you can see there, Enterprise Ireland backed businesses achieved exports of 36 billion, which is quite a significant amount of number. And they support 15,000 jobs, or sorry, new jobs in the last year or two. From an infrastructure and a capital perspective, this is really when I was going through these numbers myself, I was really taken aback by it. I suppose there was record capital expenditure of 14 billion spent by the Irish government in 2024, but over the next decade, they're forecasting to make about 27 billion on average per year, which is quite significant, which will unfortunately probably mean increased tax receipts from Irish individuals. But at the same time, if it means that our economy grows and our infrastructure grows, all the better for it. Technology and ICT is a key area of focus for us and directly employs about 140,000 people out of probably a total workforce of less than 2 million, so it's quite substantial. We have 82 data centers at the moment, but there's plenty more in construction, and there's actually been a slowdown in I suppose the signing off and planning of data centers over the last couple of years. So I think we came out of the traps very quickly in data centers and have some of the biggest players in the world here, and we need to continue that. From a tax perspective, I suppose the headline corporation tax of 12.5% is very, very attractive for companies here coming in here, and obviously, I'm sure you've all read about, I suppose the tax structuring that's gone on. That I suppose, especially for multinationals, no less than Apple in America, who've managed to significantly reduce that number. Direct supports and incentives, yeah, as I mentioned there. So FDI from IDA, and then investment in Indigenous Irish enterprises is done by Enterprise Ireland. So, very supportive governmental organisations. I want to touch on a few of the trading relationships with other European countries. So the EU is Ireland's largest trading bloc. So I have some figures here. So we did about 81 billion, which is 45% in 2023. The UK did about 22 billion, which is 12%. The US did about 54 billion, which is 30%, and then Asia is 22 billion or 12%. And then within the EU, our largest trading partners are the Netherlands, Germany, and France. And you can see there's substantial amounts of capital being transferred from an export-import perspective between Germany, they're 20 billion. And you'll see this, I suppose, similar export sectors being mentioned here. So a lot in pharmaceuticals, a lot in chemicals, machinery. Similar with France, you'll see there. So 50 billion reached in 24. And it's up 30% down where it was pre-Brexit and pre-pandemic, which is quite substantial if you think about it. And I think that there's a real kind of shift happening there away from the UK to a point into Ireland from a trade perspective across mainland Europe that we're seeing and we're benefiting from, thankfully. And then interestingly, the Netherlands there, 55 billion of total trade, and as you can see, the similar export sectors as well: pharmaceutical products, dairy, and machinery again. So I suppose within Ireland, there are 99.2% of every of all the companies within Ireland are SMEs. So that's less than 250 employees. And I have the figure here. There's only 13,000, just over 13,000 companies in Ireland that have greater than 250 employees. So, the SMEs really are the backbone of our economy here. They represent 68% of the entire business economy, in terms of people working, and then 42% in terms of turnover. I just wanted to include a few, it was just a slide here, just with a few organizations that, say, if you or any of your clients were interested in, I suppose, engaging with, from I suppose, an Irish SME perspective, here are the kind of the 7 or 8 entities that you should be aware of. So I'm not going to go through what they each do, but they're networking, they're financing, they're I suppose government supports, there's employee engagement, that kind of thing, at various different stages of companies, all the way from micro to perhaps maybe more mature, but still, less than 250 employees. So I just want to include them. Next, I'm going to talk to you about private equity because obviously having a very healthy private equity, I suppose, showing in any jurisdiction is a positive thing in terms of, I suppose, providing not just Irish Indigenous companies with an exit and entrepreneurs with an exit, but also being able to fund the growth of Irish companies to become global world-leading businesses. And I suppose Ireland is really a destination for private equity, predominantly because of how, I suppose, open and flexible we are from a regulatory perspective. We've got very tax efficient structures, which again, more than happy to talk to any of you about on a later call. We've access to skilled talent markets, being the only native English speaking country in Europe now, albeit saying that I'm always amazed by how good the English is spoken by mainland Europeans. So, but also we have top quality entrepreneurial businesses as well that are, I suppose, global winners in their industries in many respects. A lot of high activity and growth in Irish private equity, but there's scope for more. I've just included some statistics here. So in 2025 year to date, we did 365 transactions, which is up 11% on last year, same period. But private equity transactions are down 31% versus 2024 because of foreign private equity investment. However, this is really, I suppose, this is the key piece. In 2024, private equity volume, we did 74 transactions versus 33 in the previous year, which is 124% of an increase. And I suppose I'll touch on why we had a bit of a slowdown this year, and it won't come as a surprise to many of you. I suppose our over-reliance perhaps on the US and Trump's tariffs really had a big point to play in that. But the general trend is very positive from a general M&A volume perspective and also a private equity transaction perspective. And I just included a quick note there in terms of cross-border transactions. I just wanted to include perhaps maybe some information around the private equity firms that are operating. These are the Irish private equity firms. And I think the key point that I'm trying to make here is, while private equity is increasing in Ireland, certainly, and is very welcomed, it's still relatively nascent from a domestic Irish private equity perspective. And I'll get to that point a little bit later. But there are really only about 10 proper private equity firms really here. You may be familiar with one name there, Waterland. That would be I suppose, the largest mainland European private equity firm, leaving a UK aside, that has its own office here and is very active here. And it has only been here for the last, I think, 5 years or so, and they're doing a great job. We would know them very well, but there's a lot of scope to grow. Both I think both from a mainland Europe private equity perspective coming into Ireland, and setting up offices here and actually and building businesses here, as well as also the Irish domestic private equity scene can certainly grow as well. And that's my next point here, that there's definitely it's been acknowledged that there's an underserved area within private equity or kind of venture capital private equity, where scaling finance for Indigenous companies is certainly something that where there's a big opportunity and needs to be looked at. And as you can see there's $1 billion there of gap identified. This is actually by the Irish government over the next couple of years, and the gap is very much in that kind of 5 to 10 million range. Looking for patient long-term capital. And I suppose I want to include these statistics here to kind of underpin this, because the average fund size in Ireland is about 70 million, average venture capital fund size is 60. whereas, you really want to be getting into a couple of 100 million of a fund to really be able to, I suppose, fund the ongoing, I suppose, growth, both organic and inorganic of Irish Indigenous companies. And I suppose that's the real point that a lot of Irish billionaires are coming out with as well, including the Stripe brothers, saying that there's a lack of financing available, but also there's a lack of ambition for Irish entrepreneurs to actually become world leaders. They get to a certain scale typically, and then they look to exit. And I suppose that's the piece that I'm trying to get at here. Venture capital trends, huge drop. Again, I would say largely due to, I suppose, our over-reliance on the US during 2025, and predominantly because of the pullback from institutional investors. And the final point is an important one as well. Irish pension firms don't have I suppose, the ability to invest in private equity yet in a proper way because of the tax laws. So the UK private equity firms have identified Ireland as a great place to invest, and there's a significant increase in the deals done by them. And as you can see there, in the first half of 2025, it accounted for about 40% of the total deals done. The reason why, I've just laid them out there. Obviously, English speaking, favourable tax treaty, EU membership, and then low corporation tax rate. Various different sectors, across the board, but typically stable industries that we're really good at. And what I'll say as well here is, like, in terms of debt financing, there's definitely a big opportunity here from a private credit perspective as well, because a lot of Irish pillar banks, and there are only 3 pillar banks in Ireland, which is amazing when you think about it for a country with 5.5 million people or whatever it is. But a lot of them have pulled out over the last number of years, or they've certainly tightened up, I suppose, the terms upon which they would lend to, I suppose, to fund LBOs or leveraged buyouts. And so there are a number of alternative lenders, such as Dunport Capital, who've stepped into this space, and there's a real big opportunity there as well. I've included a couple of, I suppose, these UK private equity firms who either have offices in Ireland here or who have done deals in Ireland. And as you can see, like some of them are quite substantial funds, but there's significant scope to grow, I suppose, their Irish concentration or exposure. And we work very closely with them as well. And then I just wanted to include a couple of ideas here with regards to key considerations for UK private equity firms and European private equity firms as well, seeking to invest here. I'm not going to go through these in great detail, but there are significant approvals required from a merger control perspective. And as you can see, that would really, I suppose, come into play with regards to Transio members' core focus of kind of, the kind of lower mid-market. A new approval that is coming in, it came in towards the end of last year as an FDI screening. It won't really impact any European acquirers of Irish businesses, but it will impact UK acquirers of Irish businesses. And as you can see, it's incredibly onerous. There's a notification required for any transaction greater than 2 million. And especially where it relates to critical infrastructure and that kind of thing. And it is very, very onerous. So I would definitely pay attention to that, especially if you're a UK acquirer of a prospective Irish business. From a tax perspective, there's a significant amount of considerations as well, for mainland Europe or a UK private equity firm coming into Ireland. And I've just included another point there around financial assistance, which is basically a summary approval from a legal perspective that needs to be entered into, especially where there's a transaction happening that includes some debt financing. I wanted to just include some, I suppose, some recent transactions where private equity have acquired Irish businesses. One key point, I suppose, that we've identified over the last while is actually a move away from, I suppose, reporting on the consideration and therefore the multiples. So you'll see a lot of NAs there. But the key point really here is, I suppose, you'll see, like in 2024, there were 74 transactions. In 2025 already, there's been quite a few, and it's cross sector, and it's also from, I suppose, a variety of different, I suppose, backers or private equity firms, mostly from Ireland, UK, but with a few from mainland Europe. I want to include some information around some of the mainland Europe acquisitions into Ireland. So as you can see there, 113 inbound deals in the first half of this year. And so Europe accounted for 24 of those deals, so about a fifth. I've included a couple of those transactions there. As you can see, they're cross-sector, and we hope for that to grow over the next couple of years ahead. I also want to include on the flip side, though, Irish businesses have started to acquire UK and mainland European companies as well. So it's working both ways. And I suppose, there are a number of entrepreneurs in Ireland who have grown not just an indigenous company, but a global company, either via acquisition or organically. And I suppose that the ambition is there, and I suppose part of the issue is finance, but it's certainly there are certainly very, very good examples of that in Ireland. Then I just wanted to touch on, I suppose, how US tariffs are creating new global trade relationships. So obviously, the American first tariff policy earlier on in the year in April, it just created significant uncertainty for Irish exporters because Ireland it's still very over-reliant on the US from a trading perspective, especially within pharmaceuticals, medtech, and agri-foods, as I've mentioned here. The impact that it had, I suppose, in Ireland is that, we had a very quiet summer. Let's just put it that way, unfortunately. And I think, transactions are taking a bit longer. Acquirers are taking, I suppose, more time to do more diligence on Irish targeted companies. And then we've, unfortunately been involved in a couple of deals that have aborted because I suppose they're taking longer, and I suppose diligence is going deeper. So, I suppose it is a tricky time at the moment to complete transactions in Ireland. But having said that, though, we are seeing, we're seeing hopefully, I suppose, a good 2026 and good positive moves in the last quarter of this year. Acquirers are also seeking, well-established, bigger businesses that could basically, withstand greater economic shocks in the system. So therefore, I suppose that too also means probably a lower number of SMEs acquired in Ireland. But there are a lot of opportunities though, because I suppose Irish businesses are looking to create deeper trade relationships within Europe. I suppose there is an intra kind of European trade and quite an alignment from a supply chain perspective. There is the will to reduce our over-reliance. I think what these Trump tariffs have showed us is that we cannot run our economy like this, where we're solely, well, not solely, but where we're significantly exposed to just one country. And I think that there's a real move towards changing that up. So I suppose we did get a lot of certainty there in July, where there was an acknowledgement around the 15% tariffs, which is very positive. And I suppose, look, there's still a wall of capital in UK and European private equity firms, which needs to be deployed or needs to be redeployed. And our view of it is that it might take some time to materialize, but we are expecting a much stronger 2026 perspective. From an M&A perspective, and we're already starting to see that come into fruition. So I suppose that's really my presentation around, I suppose, Irish M&A at present. A quick slide on who we are. We provide sell side, buy side, mostly M&A advisory, but also provide a full suite from across debt financing, FTD, and post deal. We're sector agnostic, but these are the 5 core areas that we provide advice upon, just because we've built businesses in those industries over the last decade on behalf of capital providers. If anyone would like to, I suppose, book in with us to have a quick chat, you can get your phone up and there's a QR code you can scan. Also, you can follow us on LinkedIn if you want to get your phone up and do a quick QR code scan. And then the final one, sorry about this, guys. If you want access to our newsletters, you can scan that QR code and gain access to it directly. So I suppose I just thought I'd move it on to a live Q&A now. If anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them in relation to M&A in Ireland. Thanks so much again, Transio, for the opportunity to present to you guys today.
Thank you so much, Dónal. It was really interesting. And we don't have a lot of time, but I think our chairman has a comment for you or a question.
Yes, just one thing, Donald. Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation about your country. But I think you forget just one thing to mention. The qualification for the World Cup playoff for your country in football. So congratulations for that.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciate all over Europe. It's been facing.
We are on a high here. We are on a high. The last week has been bananas in Ireland here from a sporting perspective. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, I read that, and I hope we will be able to qualify ourselves tonight against Liechtenstein.
We'll be watching
for the World Cup as well. So we hope so. But thank you very much for your presentation. It was really interesting. Thank you, and we are very happy that you join us within Transio this year. So it's great news for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You can stop sharing your screen, I think, Dónal. And are there any comments or questions before we move on to the next session?
I would like to. This is Paul in Nashville, Tennessee, USA. I appreciate your comments, Dónal. It sounds like we have a lot of people around the world in the same situation where we're in the wait and see type of a program here. You said they're doing more due diligence, deeper dive in due diligence, the world economy, the wars, inflation, etc. The political climate. So it's not just here in the USA or America, but throughout the world. It sounds like we have a lot of people with money, but they're in a wait and see pattern. But thank you.
Okay, Dónal, are you there? Because you put in the chat that you lost us, so your screen freezed. So you should. Okay. Okay, it's okay. Are you still there, Dónal? No, I think maybe the connection was lost. So sorry for the inconvenience. We are doing our best. So maybe if you come back, you can still talk together, but we have to move on to the next session.